The emergency beacon pierced through the cosmic static like a knife through silk. Deep in the outer rim of the Andromeda spiral, Captain Sarah Chen felt her blood run cold as the translation software decoded the desperate message flooding their communications array. The USS Endeavour, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, had been charting unknown systems for 3 years when this cry for help reached them. "Captain, you need to hear this," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the communications station, his voice tight with concern. The bridge fell silent as the alien transmission played through the speakers. Even with the universal translator working overtime, the fear in the speaker's voice was unmistakable. "This is High Coordinator Zixtal of the Verdanian Republic. Our homeworld of Verdania Prime is under siege by the Kethmori Collective. They have surrounded our planet with their war fleets. We estimate 48 standard cycles before our shields fail completely. Our military forces have been scattered across 7 different star systems. We cannot return in time to defend our people." The transmission crackled with interference, but the desperation remained clear. "We broadcast this message on all known frequencies. Any species capable of faster-than-light travel, we beg for your assistance. The Kethmori do not take prisoners. They harvest worlds. 17 billion Verdanian lives hang in the balance. Please, if anyone receives this transmission, help us." Sarah stared at the tactical display showing their current position. According to the star charts, they were approximately 6 light-years from the Verdanian system. Their experimental quantum drive could cover that distance in roughly 18 hours. The problem was what they would find when they arrived. "Ma'am, I'm detecting multiple ship signatures in the Verdanian system," reported Ensign Kim from the sensor station. The computer estimates approximately 300 vessels of unknown configuration surrounding the planet. Energy readings suggest massive orbital bombardment platforms. Commander Jackson, Sarah's second-in-command, stepped closer to her chair. "Captain, with all due respect, we're a single exploration vessel. Our crew complement is only 87 personnel. We have basic defensive systems and limited offensive capabilities. What could we possibly do against a fleet of that size?" Sarah understood his concerns perfectly. The Endeavour was built for discovery, not warfare. Their mission parameters never included engaging hostile alien forces. But as she listened to the transmission repeat itself, she thought about the billions of innocent lives facing extinction. The Verdanians had reached out across the void, hoping someone would hear their plea. "Pull up everything we have on both species," Sarah ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The main screen filled with data compiled from their extensive xenological databases. The Verdanians appeared to be a peaceful, technologically advanced civilization that had achieved interstellar flight roughly 2 centuries ago. They had established colonies on 12 different worlds and maintained diplomatic relations with 6 other species. Their society valued art, science, and exploration above military might. The Kethmori Collective painted a very different picture. They were a nomadic warrior culture that had been expanding aggressively through this region of space for over a millennium. Their ships were heavily armed and designed specifically for planetary conquest. They would strip a world of all useful resources before moving on to the next target, leaving nothing but barren rock behind. "Captain, I'm reading something else," Lieutenant Rodriguez interrupted. "There's a secondary transmission buried in the signal. It's much weaker, but it appears to be from the Kethmori fleet itself." The bridge crew listened as a harsh, guttural voice filled the speakers. The translator struggled with the alien syntax, but the meaning became clear. "Verdanian insects, your pathetic distress calls amuse us. No one will come to save you. Your species will serve as nourishment for our growing empire. Surrender now, and we may allow some of your young to survive in our labor camps." The transmission ended with what could only be described as cruel laughter. Sarah felt her jaw clench involuntarily. She had seen enough conflict during humanity's expansion into space to recognize pure malice when she heard it. "Commander Jackson, how long would it take to reach Earth and return with a proper battle fleet?" she asked. Jackson consulted his tactical computer. "Minimum of 6 months, Captain. Even if Command approved immediate deployment, which is unlikely given our current political situation." Sarah nodded grimly. Humanity was still recovering from the devastating colonial wars that had ended just 5 years earlier. The Earth Defense Force was focused primarily on protecting human worlds, not engaging in conflicts with unknown alien species light years away. "Ma'am, if I may," spoke Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief science officer. "I've been analyzing the Kethmori ship configurations. Their vessels appear to be heavily armored, but lack sophisticated point defense systems. They're designed to overwhelm opponents through superior numbers and firepower, not tactical precision. Sarah studied the sensor data carefully. What are you thinking, Doctor? Well, Captain, humanity has always excelled at finding creative solutions to impossible problems. We might not have superior numbers or firepower, but we have something else. Dr. Vasquez paused, a slight smile crossing her face. We have experience fighting against overwhelming odds. The captain looked around the bridge at her crew. These were some of the finest officers in the Earth Defense Force, handpicked for humanity's first deep space mission. They had volunteered to travel further from home than any human had ever gone before. Now they faced a choice that could define not just their own fates, but how humanity would be remembered by the galaxy. Ensign Kim, how long until the Verdanian shields fail? Sarah asked. Based on the energy decay patterns I'm detecting, approximately 44 hours, Captain. Sarah stood from her chair and walked to the main view screen. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, billions of innocent beings waited for death. They had sent their plea into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. The Endeavor might be just one ship, but they carried something the Kethmori had never encountered before. They carried the indomitable spirit of humanity. All hands. This is the captain, Sarah announced over the ship's communication system. We have received a distress call from an alien civilization under attack. I won't lie to you about the odds we face. We're one ship against an entire fleet, but we didn't come out here to play it safe. We came to explore, to make contact, and to represent the best of what humanity can be. She paused, letting her words sink in throughout the ship. I'm setting course for the Verdanian system. Anyone who objects can voice their concerns now. The bridge remained silent. Sarah looked at each of her officers in turn, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes that she felt burning in her chest. Very well then, she said, returning to her command chair. Helm, set course for Verdania Prime, maximum quantum drive. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone asks for help. The quantum drive hummed with power as the USS Endeavor streaked through space toward Verdania Prime. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the ship's war room, surrounded by her senior staff as they planned what many would consider a suicide mission. The holographic display showed the Kethmori fleet arrangement around the besieged planet, and the numbers were staggering. 312 vessels confirmed, reported Commander Jackson, his finger tracing the enemy formations. They've positioned themselves in a perfect siege sphere around Verdania Prime. No ship gets in or out without going through at least 50 enemy vessels. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, studying the tactical data. Look at their positioning, though. They're so confident in their overwhelming numbers that they've made a classic mistake. They're bunched together in tight formations. Perfect for maximizing their firepower, but terrible for maneuverability. Lieutenant Commander Torres, the ship's chief engineer, pulled up schematics of the Endeavor's systems. Captain, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. We might not have heavy weapons, but we do have something unique. Our quantum drive creates a massive energy displacement when it drops out of faster-than-light travel. Sarah's eyes narrowed with interest. Explain. Well, ma'am, normally we drop out of quantum drive at safe distances to avoid damaging nearby objects. But if we were to deliberately drop out of quantum drive directly next to an enemy vessel, Torres let the implication hang in the air. The energy displacement would tear their ship apart. Dr. Vasquez finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. It would be like setting off a controlled nuclear explosion right next to their hull. Commander Jackson frowned at the display. That's extremely dangerous. We'd have to drop out of quantum drive with pinpoint accuracy while traveling at nearly light speed. One miscalculation and we'd materialize inside their ship, destroying both vessels. Or we could miss entirely and drop out right into their weapons range with no way to escape, added Lieutenant Rodriguez. Sarah studied the enemy formation patterns, her mind racing through possibilities. How many times could we pull off this maneuver before they adapted to our tactics? Torres consulted his calculations. Our quantum drive needs approximately 43 minutes between jumps to fully recharge. If we're successful, we might manage to destroy 3 or 4 enemy vessels before they figure out what we're doing and adjust their formations. 4 ships out of 300, Jackson said grimly. That barely makes a dent in their forces. Dr. Vasquez suddenly straightened in her chair. Wait, I have an idea. What if we're not trying to destroy their entire fleet? What if we're trying to create chaos and confusion? She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting different sections of the Kethmori formation. Look at their command structure. They have a hierarchical arrangement with obvious flagship vessels directing each sector. If we could target their command ship specifically, we might be able to disrupt their coordination. Sarah leaned back in her chair, considering the proposal. You're talking about psychological warfare. Make them think we're a much larger threat than we actually are. Exactly, Dr. Vasquez continued. Humans have always been masters of misdirection and guerrilla tactics. We make them paranoid. We strike fast, disappear, and strike again from a completely different direction. Force them to spread their formations apart to watch for us. Lieutenant Commander Torres nodded enthusiastically. And if we can disrupt their siege formation even temporarily, it might give the Verdanians a chance to mount some kind of counterattack or evacuation. The captain stood and walked to the tactical display, studying the enemy positions intently. She thought about humanity's history of warfare. From ancient battles where small forces had defeated much larger armies through superior tactics and timing. David versus Goliath wasn't just a story, it was a blueprint. All right, here's what we're going to do, Sarah announced. We're going to become the most dangerous ghost ship in this sector of space. Hit-and-run tactics, psychological warfare, and good old-fashioned human stubbornness. She began pointing to specific locations on the display. First jump, we target their primary communications vessel. Take out their ability to coordinate fleet-wide maneuvers. Second jump, we hit their supply depot ship. Third jump, we go after whatever looks like their fleet commander's flagship. Commander Jackson pulled up detailed scans of the Kethmori vessels. Captain, I'm seeing some interesting structural weaknesses in their ship designs. They appear to have massive power cores but relatively light armor around critical systems. If we could get close enough, our plasma torpedoes might be able to cause cascade failures in their power systems, Torres finished. One well-placed shot could disable a ship much larger than ourselves. Dr. Vasquez was already working on targeting calculations. I can modify our sensors to identify the most vulnerable points on each vessel type. Give us maximum impact with minimum ammunition expenditure. Sarah felt a surge of pride watching her crew work together. This was what humanity did best. Faced with impossible odds, they adapted, improvised, and found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Lieutenant Rodriguez, I want you to prepare a message for the Verdanians, she ordered. Let them know help is coming and to be ready to take advantage of any opportunities we create. Yes, ma'am. What should I tell them about our numbers? Sarah smiled grimly. Tell them the truth. Tell them that Earth sends its regards and that one human ship is more than enough to ruin the Kethmori's entire day. The communications officer grinned and turned to his station. The bridge crew began their final preparations as the quantum drive countdown approached 0. In less than 6 hours, they would drop out of faster-than-light travel directly into the middle of the largest hostile fleet any human had ever encountered. Captain, called Ensign Kim from the sensor station, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Verdanian planet. It looks like they're trying to boost their planetary shields. Good, Sarah replied. At least they're not giving up. That gives us something to work with. She activated the ship-wide communication system one final time. All hands, this is your captain. In a few hours, we're going to do something that's never been attempted before. We're going to take on an entire alien fleet with nothing but our wits, our courage, and our refusal to let innocent people die on our watch. The ship fell silent as her words echoed through every corridor and compartment. I know some of you are scared. I know some of you think we're crazy. You're probably right on both counts. But I also know that every single person on this ship volunteered to be here because they believed humanity had something unique to offer the galaxy. Sarah paused, looking around the bridge at the determined faces of her crew. Today we're going to prove that belief correct. Today we're going to show the universe that when someone cries for help across the stars, humans answer that call, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The quantum drive reached final countdown as the USS Endeavour prepared to drop back into normal space. Somewhere ahead of them, an alien civilization faced extinction, while their attackers celebrated what they believed would be an easy victory. They were about to learn that humans had very different ideas about what constituted easy prey. Reality snapped back into focus as the USS Endeavour dropped out of quantum drive, directly beside a massive Kethmori communications vessel. The energy displacement from their arrival tore through the alien ship's hull like tissue paper, sending debris spinning into the void. Before the enemy could even register what had happened, the Endeavor was already charging its quantum drive for the next jump. "Direct hit on the communications ship," shouted Ensign Kim from the sensor station. "Their fleet-wide coordination network is down across 17 sectors." Captain Sarah Chen felt a fierce satisfaction as chaos erupted throughout the Keth Mori formation. On the main screen, she watched enemy vessels frantically changing positions, their perfect siege sphere beginning to fracture as individual commanders lost contact with their central command. "Quantum drive at 60% charge," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres. 26 minutes until next jump capability." "Take us to silent running," Sarah ordered. "All non-essential systems offline. Make us invisible." The bridge darkened as the Endeavor powered down everything except life support and basic navigation. They drifted through space like a ghost, using the confusion they had created to mask their presence among the debris field from the destroyed communications ship. "Captain, I'm intercepting Keth Mori transmissions," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "The translation software is having trouble with their battle language, but they're definitely panicking. Multiple ships are demanding to know what happened to the communications vessel." Dr. Vasquez monitored the alien fleet movements on her console. "Look at this, Captain. They're pulling ships out of the siege formation to search for us. They think we're a much larger force using some kind of cloaking technology." Sarah nodded with grim satisfaction. Fear was humanity's greatest weapon when facing superior numbers. Make the enemy paranoid, force them to waste resources looking for threats that might not exist, and turn their own numbers against them. "Fleet Admiral Kreshtar of the Keth Mori Collective demands immediate response," Rodriguez translated another incoming transmission. "He's ordering all sector commanders to maintain formation and continue the bombardment of Verdania Prime." "Good," Sarah replied. "Internal command disputes will work in our favor. How are the Verdanians holding up?" Kim consulted his sensor readings. "Their planetary shields are still holding, but I'm detecting fluctuations. The bombardment has intensified since we arrived. I think the Keth Mori are trying to finish this quickly before we can do more damage." "Then we'd better make sure they can't," Sarah said grimly. "Torres, what's our quantum drive status?" 18 minutes until full charge, Captain." Sarah studied the tactical display, looking for their next target. The Keth Mori fleet was spreading out now, no longer maintaining their tight formation. Individual ships were scanning the debris field where they had destroyed the communications vessel, while others had moved to defensive positions around what appeared to be their flagship. "There," she pointed to a large vessel positioned near the planet's north pole. "That ship is coordinating the bombardment of the northern hemisphere. If we take it out, we can relieve pressure on roughly a third of the Verdanian population." Commander Jackson frowned at the targeting data. "Captain, that ship is surrounded by escorts. 8 smaller vessels in close formation. We won't be able to get close enough for another quantum drive displacement attack." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way," Sarah replied. "We outfight them." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with concern. "Ma'am, our weapons are designed for exploration and basic self-defense. We have 6 plasma torpedoes and point defense lasers. They have enough firepower to level a city. But they're not expecting us to attack directly," Sarah countered. "They think we're using hit-and-run tactics with some kind of advanced stealth technology. A direct assault will catch them completely off guard." She activated the tactical planning system, highlighting the enemy formation. "Look at their escort pattern. They're positioned to defend against long-range attacks from multiple directions, but there's a blind spot directly beneath their formation where the planet's gravity well interferes with their sensors." Torres studied the approach vector. "It's risky, Captain. We'd have to skim the upper atmosphere at high speed while under fire from multiple enemy vessels." "Risk is what separates exploration from tourism," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "Besides, I'd rather die fighting than watch billions of innocent people get slaughtered while we hide in the dark." The quantum drive reached full charge with a subtle vibration through the ship's hull. Sarah took a deep breath and settled into her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for what could very well be their final mission. "All hands, battle stations," she announced. "We're going to punch a hole right through their formation and remind them why you never corner a human." The Endeavor's engines roared to life as they broke from their hiding place among the debris. Immediately, proximity alarms began sounding as Keth Mori ships detected their movement and opened fire. Brilliant energy beams lanced through space around them as Sarah guided her ship into a steep dive toward Verdania Prime's atmosphere. Multiple enemy vessels changing course to intercept, Kim reported. I count 14 ships moving to surround us. Let them come, Sarah replied, her hands steady on the controls. Torres, I want maximum power to forward shields. Dr. Vasquez, target their bombardment vessel's power core. Rodriguez, signal the Verdanians that we're making our run. The ship shuddered as enemy fire began finding its mark. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as they skimmed through the upper atmosphere, using the planet's gravity and atmospheric interference to mask their exact position. Torpedo lock acquired, Dr. Vasquez announced. Firing solution looks good, but we'll only get one shot before they overwhelm our shields. One shot is all we need, Sarah replied. Fire when ready. The plasma torpedo streaked away from the Endeavor, its brilliant blue trail cutting through the darkness of space. For a moment, time seemed frozen as everyone watched the torpedo's path toward the massive Kethmori bombardment vessel. The explosion lit up the night side of Verdania Prime like a second sun. The enemy ship's power core detonated in a cascade failure that sent shockwaves through the surrounding escort vessels. 3 of the smaller ships were caught in the blast radius and destroyed instantly, while the others were knocked out of formation. Direct hit, Kim shouted. The bombardment vessel is completely destroyed, but their victory came at a cost. The Endeavor's shields flickered and failed under the concentrated fire from the remaining enemy ships. Hull breaches appeared on decks 7 and 12, and the main engine output dropped by 30%. Hull integrity at 67%, Torres reported. We need to get out of here, Captain. Sarah didn't hesitate.
Quantum jump now!
Random coordinates, maximum distance. Reality blurred around them as the Endeavor vanished from the Verdanian system, leaving behind a field of destroyed enemy vessels and very confused Kethmori commanders. They had struck twice now, each time appearing from nowhere and disappearing just as quickly. The psychological impact was exactly what Sarah had hoped for. Fear was spreading through the Kethmori fleet like a virus, and they had barely gotten started. The USS Endeavor drifted in empty space, her hull scarred and smoking from the previous engagement. Emergency repair teams worked frantically to seal hull breaches, while Captain Sarah Chen received damage reports from across the ship. They had jumped to a position 3 light hours away from Verdania Prime, far enough to avoid detection while they regrouped. Casualties are minimal, reported Dr. Sarah Martinez, the ship's chief medical officer. 7 crew members with minor injuries from the hull breaches, but everyone is stable. We were lucky. Commander Jackson pulled up a tactical analysis on the main screen. Captain, our attack definitely had the desired effect. I'm intercepting communications from the Kethmori fleet, and they're in complete disarray. Their fleet admiral is screaming at his subordinates, demanding to know how a single ship is making fools of their entire armada. Lieutenant Commander Torres looked up from his engineering console with a grim expression. The bad news is we've lost 2 of our 6 plasma torpedoes, and our hull integrity is compromised. We can take maybe one more direct engagement before our structural systems fail completely. Sarah studied the intercepted communications data. The Kethmori were pulling ships back from the planetary bombardment to form search patrols. Their perfect siege formation was completely broken now, with vessels scattered across the system looking for ghosts. Dr. Vasquez, what's the status of the Verdanian planetary shields? She asked. Much better than expected, the science officer replied with excitement. With the reduction in bombardment intensity, their shields have stabilized. More importantly, I'm detecting movement from several Verdanian vessels that were hiding on the far side of their moon. It looks like they're preparing to make a run for their homeworld. Sarah felt a surge of hope. The Verdanians weren't giving up. They were using the chaos the Endeavor had created to mount their own counterattack. This was what she had been hoping for, not to win the battle single-handedly, but to create enough confusion for the defenders to organize themselves. Lieutenant Rodriguez, are you still monitoring Kethmori communications? She asked. Yes, ma'am. And Captain, you need to hear this latest transmission. It's from their Fleet Admiral directly. The harsh voice of Fleet Admiral Kreshitar filled the bridge, barely contained rage evident even through the universal translator. Cowardly shadows. You think your pathetic hit-and-run tactics frighten the Kethmori collective? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have destroyed species more advanced than yours. Show yourselves and face us in honorable combat. Sarah couldn't help but smile at the obvious frustration in the alien commander's voice. He's scared, she observed. A confident leader doesn't make public speeches like that to his entire fleet. Dr. Vasquez was analyzing the tactical situation when she suddenly straightened in her chair.
Captain, I think I know how we can end this.
Look at the Keth Mori fleet positioning now versus when we first arrived. The main screen showed a comparison between the original siege formation and the current scattered positions, where once the alien ships had formed a perfect sphere around Verdania Prime. They were now spread across the system in loose patrol groups. They've completely abandoned coordinated tactics, Dr. Vasquez continued. Each group is operating independently, which means they can't provide mutual support. If we could somehow get the Verdanian forces to coordinate a simultaneous attack on multiple separated groups, Commander Jackson nodded slowly. The Kethamori would be fighting a dozen different battles instead of one large engagement. Their numerical advantage would be neutralized. But how do we coordinate with the Verdanians? Asked Torres. We don't have their communication codes, and any transmission we send will be intercepted by the enemy. Sarah thought for a moment, then turned to Dr. Vasquez. You said there are Verdanian ships moving toward their homeworld. How many? I count 17 vessels of various sizes. Probably their remaining military forces plus some armed civilian ships. And how many Kethmori patrol groups are currently scattered around the system? Dr. Vasquez consulted her readings. 12 separate formations ranging from 8 to 15 ships each. Sarah stood and walked to the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. What if we don't need to coordinate with the Verdanians directly? What if we just create the right opportunities and trust them to take advantage? She began highlighting different patrol groups on the display. We make one more quantum jump attack, but this time we target the patrol group closest to where the Verdanian ships are massing. When we engage, we make it look like we're in serious trouble. Draw in nearby Kethmori reinforcements. Commander Jackson frowned. Captain, that sounds like you're suggesting we use ourselves as bait. Exactly, Sarah replied. We get the Kethmori focused on one location, creating weaknesses everywhere else. The Verdanians see their opportunity and attack the scattered groups simultaneously. Dr. Vasquez was already running calculations. It could work, but the timing would have to be perfect, and we'd be taking on overwhelming odds with no backup. Story of humanity right there, Sarah said with a grim smile. But this time we're not trying to win the fight. We're trying to create enough chaos for someone else to win the war. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Verdanian forces. They're broadcasting on an open channel. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was different from the desperate plea they had received days earlier. This speaker sounded determined, even hopeful. Unknown vessel that has been attacking the Kethmori fleet? This is Commander Thelnara of the Verdanian Defense Force. We don't know who you are or why you've come to our aid, but your actions have given us hope. The transmission continued with growing confidence. We have observed your tactics and we understand your strategy. Our forces are prepared to coordinate with your next attack. When you engage the enemy, we will strike simultaneously at their weakened positions. For Verdania! Sarah felt a surge of excitement. The Verdanians had figured out what the Endeavor was trying to do without any direct communication. They were already thinking like allies. Well, there's our answer, she announced to her crew. They're ready to fight alongside us. The question is, are we ready to bet everything on one final gambit? Lieutenant Commander Torres shook his head with a rueful smile. Captain, when you put it like that, how can we possibly say no? Besides, I've always wondered what it would be like to take on impossible odds. Careful what you wish for, Commander Jackson muttered, but he was already working on targeting solutions for their final attack. Dr. Vasquez brought up a detailed analysis of the nearest Kethmori patrol group. I recommend we target this formation here. 11 ships, including what appears to be a heavy cruiser. They're positioned between the Verdanian forces and the main enemy fleet. Sarah nodded. Perfect. When we attack them, the nearest reinforcements will come from here and here. She pointed to 2 other patrol groups. That should draw at least 30 enemy ships to our location. Leaving the other formations vulnerable to Verdanian attack, Jackson finished. It's crazy enough to work. Sarah activated the ship-wide communication system one final time. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt something that will either go down in history as the most successful military operation ever conducted by a single ship, or the most spectacular failure in human space exploration. She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. Either way, I can't think of anyone I'd rather have standing beside me when we find out which one it is. Quantum drive to full power. Let's finish this. The USS Endeavour materialized directly in the center of the Kethmori patrol formation, her quantum drive displacement instantly vaporizing a medium-sized cruiser. Captain Sarah Chen had calculated this jump perfectly, appearing where the enemy least expected while simultaneously broadcasting a message across all frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel USS Endeavour. Her voice echoed across the battlefield. To the Kethmori Collective, your reign of terror ends today. To the Verdanian people, Earth stands with you against tyranny. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. The remaining 10 Kethmori ships in the formation reeled in confusion, their crews struggling to comprehend how a single vessel had appeared among them and destroyed one of their own in seconds. All enemy ships are targeting us, reported Ensign Kim, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. Energy weapons charging across the entire formation. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah ordered, throwing the Endeavour into a spiraling pattern that took advantage of their superior maneuverability. Dr. Vasquez, target their heavy cruiser. If we're going down, we're taking their biggest ship with us. Brilliant energy beams lanced through space around them as the Kethmori opened fire. The Endeavour's damaged shields flared and sparked under the assault, but Sarah kept them moving in unpredictable patterns that made accurate targeting nearly impossible. Torpedo away, Dr. Vasquez announced. The plasma torpedo struck the Kethmori heavy cruiser amidships, penetrating their armor and detonating deep within the vessel's hull. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship's length as critical systems failed in cascade. The massive vessel broke apart in a spectacular fireball that lit up the surrounding space. Direct hit. Heavy cruiser destroyed, Kim shouted over the sound of proximity alarms, but their victory came at a cost. The concentrated fire from the remaining enemy ships finally overwhelmed the Endeavour's failing shields. Hull breaches appeared across multiple decks as energy beams found their mark. Shields are down, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres. Hull integrity at 40% and falling. Sarah checked the tactical display and felt a surge of satisfaction, despite their desperate situation. Her plan was working perfectly. 3 separate Kethmori formations were changing course to respond to the attack, pulling nearly 40 enemy ships away from their patrol positions. Captain, massive energy signatures detected, Kim called out. Multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel throughout the system. On the main screen, Sarah watched as 17 Verdanian ships appeared simultaneously at different points around the system. Each group targeted one of the weakened Kethmori formations, attacking with a coordination and timing that spoke of careful planning and desperate courage. The tide of battle shifted in an instant. Where moments before the Kethmori had held overwhelming numerical superiority, they now found themselves fighting multiple engagements simultaneously. Their scattered formations couldn't support each other, and the Verdanians pressed their attacks with the ferocity of people defending their homes. The Verdanians are breaking through, Dr. Vasquez reported with excitement. They've destroyed or disabled vessels in 6 different enemy formations. But the Endeavour was still surrounded by 9 hostile ships, their hull buckling under continued fire. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as critical systems began failing throughout the ship. Main engine offline, Torres reported grimly. Quantum drive is down. We're sitting ducks out here, Captain. Sarah watched the tactical display as the broader battle raged around them. The Verdanians were winning, but it would take time to complete their victory. Time the Endeavour didn't have. All remaining torpedoes spread pattern, she ordered. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as possible. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez interrupted urgently. I'm receiving a transmission from the largest Verdanian vessel. They're requesting permission to come alongside. Sarah frowned. In the middle of a firefight? They'll be destroyed before they can reach us. The transmission came through clearly despite the interference from weapons fire all around them. USS Endeavour, this is Admiral Zixtal of the Verdanian Republic. You answered our call for help when no one else would. Now let us return the favor. On the main screen, Sarah watched in amazement as the largest Verdanian ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Kethmori heavy cruisers, changed course directly toward their position. It was taking fire from multiple enemy ships, but its shields held firm as it carved a path through the enemy formation. How is that ship so heavily armed? Commander Jackson asked in wonder. I thought the Verdanians were a peaceful species. Dr. Vasquez was analyzing the incoming vessel's configuration. "It's not a warship," she said with growing excitement. "It's an exploration vessel like us. But it's been retrofitted with defensive systems and—" She paused, checking her readings again. "Captain, that ship is generating some kind of energy field around us." The Keth-Mori weapons fire that had been steadily pounding the Endeavor's hull suddenly began deflecting harmlessly away. The massive Verdanian vessel had positioned itself to shield the human ship, while simultaneously engaging 3 enemy vessels with its own weapons. "Impossible," breathed Torres. "They're protecting us with some kind of projected shield matrix." Admiral Zixtal's voice came through the communication system again. "Captain Chen, your ship opened this battle with courage. Let us finish it together." Sarah felt a surge of emotion as she realized what was happening. The Verdanians weren't just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting to protect the humans who had risked everything to help them. "All ships coordinate targeting," Sarah announced. "Let's show the Keth-Mori what happens when 2 species of explorers decide to fight side by side." The combined firepower of the Endeavor and the Verdanian flagship tore through the remaining Keth-Mori ships in their immediate area. Working together, they systematically destroyed or disabled every enemy vessel that threatened them. Across the system, the tide of battle had turned decisively. The scattered Keth-Mori formations were being overwhelmed by coordinated Verdanian attacks. Ship after ship fell to concentrated fire as the defenders pressed their advantage. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Keth-Mori flagship," Rodriguez reported. "It's Fleet Admiral Kreshitar. Put him through." The voice that came through the speakers was very different from the arrogant threats they had heard earlier. Now it carried the bitter tone of defeat. "Human vessel, you have cost the Keth-Mori collective dearly this day. We withdraw from this system, but remember this, we will not forget what you have done here." Sarah keyed the response herself. "Admiral Kreshitar, let me give you something to remember. Humanity has a saying, we don't start fights, but we finish them. Today you learned why no one in this galaxy should threaten innocent people while humans are watching." The Keth-Mori fleet began withdrawing from the system, their remaining ships forming defensive formations as they retreated toward the edge of the star system. The great siege of Verdania Prime was over, broken by the coordinated efforts of 2 species who had never met before this day. As the last enemy ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, a cheer echoed across the Endeavor's bridge. They had done the impossible. A single exploration vessel had taken on an entire invasion fleet and emerged victorious. 3 days after the battle, the USS Endeavor rested in a construction berth orbiting Verdania Prime. Verdanian engineers worked alongside human crew members, repairing the damage from their desperate fight against the Keth-Mori collective. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck, watching the blue-green world below as transport ships ferried supplies and personnel between the surface and orbit. "Captain?" Admiral Zixtal approached, his tall, crystalline form reflecting the light from Verdania's sun. The Verdanian leader had insisted on personally overseeing the Endeavor's repairs, despite having an entire planet to rebuild. "Your ship will be ready for departure within the next planetary rotation. Our engineers have been most impressed with human technology." Sarah turned to face the alien admiral, still somewhat amazed that first contact between their species had occurred during a battle for survival. "Admiral, we can't thank you enough for your hospitality. Your people have been incredibly generous." Zixtal made a gesture that the universal translator interpreted as amusement. "Captain Chen, you traveled across the void to answer a cry for help from complete strangers. You risked your lives for people you had never met. We are the ones who should be thanking you." Through the observation windows, they could see the massive orbital stations that surrounded Verdania Prime. The siege had damaged several of them, but Verdanian work crews were already beginning reconstruction efforts. The planet's population of 17 billion had survived, largely due to the chaos the Endeavor had created in the enemy fleet. "I've been thinking about what happens next," Sarah said thoughtfully. "The Keth-Mori collective is still out there. They'll rebuild their forces and look for another target." "Indeed," Zixtal agreed, "but they will not find us unprepared again. The attack has awakened something in the Verdanian people. We had become complacent in our peace, forgotten that the galaxy can be a dangerous place." The Admiral gestured toward the construction yards where new ships were already taking shape. "We are building a proper defense fleet now, and we have reached out to our neighboring species. The Kethmori threat has united several civilizations in this region of space. Sarah nodded approvingly. This was exactly what she had hoped would happen. The battle hadn't just saved one world. It had catalyzed the formation of a mutual defense alliance that could protect entire sectors of space. "Admiral, there's something I need to discuss with you," she said, her tone becoming more serious. "Earth needs to know about what happened here. My government will want to establish formal diplomatic relations with your people." Zixtal's crystalline features brightened noticeably. "Captain, nothing would please us more. The Verdanian Republic would be honored to establish relations with humanity. Your species has proven itself to be exactly the kind of ally we need in this galaxy." Commander Jackson approached from the corridor, carrying a datapad with the latest reports from Earth. "Captain, I just received a response from Fleet Command. They're dispatching a full diplomatic mission along with a squadron of heavy cruisers. Admiral Martinez is personally leading the delegation." Sarah felt a surge of excitement. Admiral Martinez had been her mentor at the Academy, and his presence would ensure that Earth took these new relationships seriously. "How long until they arrive?" 6 months, Jackson replied. "But that's not all. Command is also sending construction ships and engineering crews, apparently some very important people on Earth. Think establishing a permanent base in this region would be strategically valuable." Admiral Zixtal listened to this exchange with obvious interest. "A permanent human presence in our territory would be most welcome. We have much to learn from each other." Dr. Vasquez joined them at the observation windows, carrying her own datapad filled with scientific findings. "Captain, you need to see this. The Verdanians have shared some of their astronomical data with us, and the implications are staggering." She activated a holographic display showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. "Look at this. The Kethmori have been systematically conquering this entire region for over 1,000 years. Dozens of species have been wiped out or enslaved. But here's the interesting part. They've never encountered organized resistance before." Sarah studied the tactical display with growing understanding. "Because none of the local species had experience with coordinated military action." "Exactly," Dr. Vasquez continued. "Most of the civilizations in this region are peaceful explorers and traders, like the Verdanians. They had individual planetary defenses but no concept of fleet-level tactics or multi-species cooperation." Admiral Zixtal made another gesture of amusement. "Dr. Vasquez is being diplomatic. The truth is that we were militarily naive. We had forgotten that sometimes peace must be defended with strength." Sarah looked out at the recovering planet below, thinking about the broader implications of their victory. "So by introducing human military tactics and the concept of mutual defense alliances, we've potentially changed the balance of power in this entire region of space. More than that," Commander Jackson added, "we've given hope to species that had accepted Kethmori dominance as inevitable. I've been monitoring communications across 17 different star systems. Everyone is talking about the humans who defeated the collective." Admiral Zixtal nodded solemnly. "Your species has acquired quite a reputation, Captain. The story of the USS Endeavour is spreading across the galaxy. You are becoming legends." Sarah felt a mixture of pride and responsibility at those words. Humanity's first contact with galactic civilization had defined them as protectors of the innocent and defenders of freedom. It was a reputation that would shape Earth's role among the stars for generations to come. "Admiral, I want to make you a promise," she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement. "As long as species like the Kethmori threaten innocent people, humanity will stand ready to help. Today proved that when good people work together, no tyrant is too powerful to defeat." Admiral Zixtal carefully grasped her hand with his crystalline appendage, sealing the pact between their species. "And the Verdanian Republic promises to stand beside humanity in that fight. Together, we will ensure that no cry for help goes unanswered in this galaxy." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Fleet Admiral Chen sends her congratulations and requests a full debrief when you return home." Sarah smiled at the mention of her sister, who had followed a very different career path in the Earth Defense Force. "Tell the Admiral that we'll have quite a story to share with the brass." As the USS Endeavour prepared for departure from Verdania Prime, Sarah reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. They had set out as explorers and returned as the founders of humanity's first interstellar alliance. The galaxy had called for help and Earth had answered. Now they would return home carrying news that would transform humanity's understanding of its place among the stars. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they had proven that the values that defined human civilization, courage, compassion, and the refusal to abandon those in need, were exactly what the galaxy required. The voyage home would take 3 months, but Sarah knew it would be the most important journey in human history. They were carrying more than just news of first contact. They were bringing home proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons. It was its absolute refusal to let good people suffer, while humans had the power to help them.